Let's go. Welcome everyone. Hello. My name's Logan. I'm joined by Kelly, Erica, and Steve, fellow writers from Front of House blog. Welcome to the Front of House podcast. Today we'll be discussing 2021 release Spare Ribs from British group Sleaford Mods. This duo, with Jason Williamson on vocals and Andrew Fern doing production, have been at it for over a decade now. This is their 11th album, their 6th as a duo. But it seems with Spare Ribs, they've really established themselves in the industry in a unique anti-corporate way. They're anti a lot of things, actually, and no doubt there are a lot of things to complain about in Britain, especially post-2020. We'll hear about them right now. Guys, what were your first impressions of Spare Ribs? It seems to be a sonically controversial album. Tell us, Kelly, what'd you think?
Yeah, it definitely sparked some controversy and discussions from a few, groups in our class. But that's what makes this album so great. I mean, I think it's meant to start those conversations and create a little bit of controversy. When I first listened to this album, I was a little, I thought it was a little DIY, and it took me a little bit to get through it. But honestly, on a second listen, I really started to listen to those lyrics, and he has such a poignant spoken word style. So it took me a little minute to hear the metaphors, hear the innuendos, and start realizing how politically motivated and this album is with all that social commentary, and how, it was interesting for me to learn about a Brit's point of view. I feel like we get so many artists from, North America, and being from Canada, I'm really not versed in, what was happening in Britain. So one of the things I loved about this album was it made me look up, what the middle class in Britain are going through, especially with like Brexit and, the different blue collar and anti-Tory, metaphors and ideals in this lyrics. And I kind of like that it made me do a little bit of extra homework. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think if you really take the time to listen to this album, you can really learn a lot from it. And I think there's, a lot of conversations that I'm sure Erica and Steve will continue with here, but there's a lot in this album to dissect.
I totally agree with you. And my first impression was similar in how you said it was kind of DIY. It's like, it did kind of sound like someone's, I guess you could say, a younger person's first album sort of thing. But then when you listen to it again, you realize that it's extremely deep, and there's a lot of complexities interwoven throughout the lyrics and the topics that are being discussed that really give you a changes your total perspective of it. Like the way that they tackle politics in Britain and how it's heavily pervasive throughout the album is interesting, and it's pretty brave, to be honest, because when you take a political stance, especially when it's career, something, your outlet is your career, that's a big risk. But they clearly feel passionate about what their standpoints are, and they're willing to roll the dice on whether or not that will negatively impact them. They want to make sure their message is out there, and I respect that. So that is pretty much how I felt at the end of my second listen to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a really similar listening experience too. When I first listened, I thought they were really aggressive. They were really loud. I kind of felt like my ears were being attacked. But it definitely is the kind of album that you have to listen to more than once to kind of understand that they do have a lot to say, and they're educated on what they're speaking about. And like Kelly said, I looked stuff up. I learned a lot about like British culture, and I thought just like even the instrumentals, I didn't realize that music could sound like that. I thought, it's very straight cut, like, harmonies and all that stuff, but this completely blew me away.
Oh, that's cool. I think it shocked a lot of people. It's pieces of a lot of different kinds of music. I think a lot of people will say the Sleaford Mods are sort of hard to pin down in terms of genre, I guess. I think it's interesting you said that they're pretty well educated. I think I find they're pretty well educated in at least the feeling of Britain. I watched an interview with Jason Williamson, the vocalist, and he kind of said, I don't know all the comings and goings of the house there, but it seems that Fern and Williamson, they sort of capture at least the feeling, sort of this anti-aristocratic, anti-elite, sort of, working class frustration with what's been going on in Britain. And I mean, it totally makes sense. I think it works great as an expression. So, I mean, moving more specifically on, as everyone says, one of the highlight lyrics is, let's get Brexit punched. Let's get Brexit fucked by a horse's penis until it misery splits. Ugly rich white men get shagged by it. Squeak. Guys, were there any, I'd say maybe lyrical explosions at you? Any sort of shocking political? I know, aside from the political message, they also sort of have this musical doctrine going on, sort of this anti-tourist sentiment. Erica, what'd you think? Was there anything that jumped out at you?
They had a really strong political agenda with this album. I thought it was kind of cool though that you could listen to it and step back from it. You don't have to listen to the lyrics in depth. You can just like appreciate the music. But I also like how, there's a more evolved element. There's like a layered aspect to what they're speaking about. They talk a lot about Brexit and the effect of Brexit on, the culture, the society. And I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was kind of cool how this is a post-pandemic or, mid-pandemic album. And it kind of shows how like the culture's kind of faced extreme highs and lows. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I agreed with you totally, Erica, because I was going through the lyrics and looking at like the things that they were actually saying and digging deeper, and they pretty much criticize the current political situation, like of the Tories anyway, like and their policies, now they're affecting the people in Britain. But they also criticize capitalism in general, and they criticize the different. I guess they criticize people that take part in capitalism through, I guess, sacrificing their integrity to make gains, either social or financial. Like in the song "Nudge It," I know that they wrote that with keeping the hatred for people that posture using social platforms in mind. Like that was a big heavy presence in their minds when they wrote that. A good quote from that would be, "It's all commercial gain to plant seeds of destruction," and that kind of embodies the mentality that they have, in the sense that they think that other artists that they do the traditional networking, because things are changing now, and the social platforms are certainly enabling people to reach larger audiences than before, but they really criticize the people that take advantage of I guess virtue signaling and trying to make it seem like they're good people, but they aren't really. For instance, people who there was actually a girl who would run up and take pictures as if she was helping people rebuild a burnt down building, that and in reality she just ran by, grabbed a hammer, took a picture and left. And they're kind of attacking that false sentimentality. And I think that that's actually something that needs to be addressed, and to put that on a musical platform is very interesting.
Yeah, just to add to that, Steve, I wrote about the song "Nudge It," which was basically written to call out those organizations and artists, that appropriate the British working class and kind of are like posers. And some of the lyrics in that song, the one that kind of jumped out to me and I wrote about was, "You're just a mime that's spraying and praying on walls, and the after effects are making my skin crawl." So basically saying, these artists are just using this romantic vision of, middle-class Britain to benefit themselves, even though they're basically millionaires, and they're acting like, yeah, I'm just a middle-class Brit, you can relate to me. So basically, what Williamson was saying is like, if you haven't lived it, don't try and use it. Don't use it to your advantage, and like you shouldn't be using it to your advantage. And that's one of the things about Sleaford that's so great, is they really do like to support artists that are coming up that they believe in, and they create a community with these artists, and they really want to support them, which I think is great, because being in the industry for 14 years, to be that peer for someone that's coming up, especially a young British artist or maybe a young Australian artist, looking up to them, it really kind of helps them find their way. So I think it's great that they're kind of calling out these posers, and on the other side of it, I think it's great that they're really giving back to those people that they really believe in, and they believe in the message of these young artists that they're putting out as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Kelly. I love in elocution, there's this preamble where it's he's saying, "Oh, I'm an indie artist who wants to support independent venues, but I do this so that maybe one day I won't have to play at independent venues." And it's just very poignant because there's something so grounded about the Sleaford Mods. They're not really trying to transcend or be anything other than what they are. I mean, look at their haircuts. Like, are you kidding me? It's the most blue collar British thing I've ever seen in my life, and we've reached past the halfway mark. I just want to let everyone know that this podcast is brought to you by 100 miles of baseball, 50 games, one summer. Professor Dale Jacobs and his wife, Dr. Heidi Jacobs. Dale, a professor at the University of Windsor, Dr. Heidi Jacobs working at the Letty Library here. This is an awesome paperback about local baseball, traveling love of the game. Check it out. You can pre-order it on Amazon now. Okay, guys, I feel like we have sort of neglected how this album sounds. I'm interested in hearing sort of your highlights, your critiques. Tell me some favorite, least favorite songs, lyrics, sounds, and why. Kelly, what do you think?
Yeah, so it's funny when you try and put these guys in a box, you really can't. And when you Google them to try and be like, what, where do they fall? Literally, it says post-punk, electro-punk, minimalist, spoken word, rap punk, punk rock, hip hop. So I don't know if you can really like put them into one box, but I think that's what makes them so cool. And again, like I really liked the song Nudge It, and I know we were talking about it before the podcast that it really likened to the song Girls by the Beastie Boys. I really made that comparison, and that song were one of the few songs on the Beastie Boys album that wasn't their standard rap song. It was very much DIY. It used not your normal instrumental ideals. It was more sounds and like soundscapes, which I think is really interesting. And that's what I like about these guys. I like that they're outside of the box. They don't just like conform to the normal. And I think, that's what makes them so popular in Britain, because they are so relatable. They spit this middle class image because they are part of the middle class. They live it, they breathe it, they work it. So it really makes them that relatable band. And again, with Nudge It, they actually had, and we talked about it a little earlier in the podcast, Amy Taylor, who's an Australian artist, and they featured her, on that track. And it just goes to show, they are spitting out these metaphors and this political, voice that they have, and they're fighting for something they believe in, but they're also fighting for their fellow artists and giving female artists, a voice within in their work. So I really like that they come off as these, fighters for the middle class, yet they are here to support, their fellow musicians. So that's something that I really took away from this album, that, if you take the time to listen to it, there's so many smart lyrics, so many smart innuendos. Like, these guys are musically with it. They're there, they get it. And if you can take the time to listen to it, I really think you're going to walk away enjoying the music. And on contrary to some, maybe, in our class, I have added them to my Spotify playlist, and I do listen to them from time to time. But like I said, if you really take the time and listen deeper, you hear that the vocals are sophisticated, the lyrics are there, that poetic intelligence is there, it's confrontational, and it really opens up, a view into the British working class life, which I think on a global level we need, because it's not something I would have ever been exposed to if I hadn't had listened to this album before.
Oh, totally. I totally agree with that. My first impression, or my, I guess, impressions of their style is, you're right, you can't put them into a box. It's kind of like, oh, we're this one genre that actually is 50 genres, but that's their selling point. A good example of how it's just kind of jarring, but also once you look deeper, you receive it much more in depth, is the song Elocution. How that was my least favorite song on the whole album when I first heard it. And then now it's my favorite song on the album because I listened to it like 10 times to try to understand it. And now that I kind of have a better understanding of it, I see that they were really attacking the virtue signaling and the fake social posturing that we discussed earlier. And I like the lyric that they have. It's one of the chorus lyrics. I'm no good with elocution to get myself into the institution. And basically he's saying, like, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want to do that because that's not me. And I think that that's fake and that's BS. And I don't want anything to do with that. And I really respected that. And I also thought that it's interesting that he delivers this point while he's doing a sort of rap and pop mix of delivery, which is a difficult way to deliver it, in my opinion, for people that aren't into that sort of thing. So he's not good with elocution, he's saying. There's a dual meaning in that. And I think that relates to, oh, I'm not good with elocution, this is why I sound this way. But actually, I'm not good with elocution. The real point I'm making is that I do not agree with the current social marketing strategies and the current, I guess, social background of the music industry and having to take part in that in order to succeed. And I thought that was really cool. So my least favorite song became my favorite song on the whole album.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was bothering my girlfriend all today. I had the chorus stuck in my head. I was singing it in a horrible British accent. Erica, if you'd like to end us off, maybe a highlight or critique, you think? What do you think?
I thought, my favorite song on the album was Spare Ribs. I wrote about it, so I kind of got a little bit more in depth with that song. I like how they don't sugarcoat what they're trying to say. The music is a whole other topic. It kind of punctuates every verse. I don't know, they comment on a lot of really important issues, and they don't do it in a way that they're gonna capitalize on it. And whenever I found myself kind of like getting lost, not really knowing what they're talking about, they made a lot of references to people like Elon Musk that like I would recognize, brought my attention back to the song, and then I was able to like put things into perspective. And I thought that was really interesting that they were able to do that. Yeah, not my style of music, not what I usually listen to, but I was pleasantly surprised with the album overall.
Just to add to that, Erica, I know we kind of talked about it before, but Spare Ribs, and I know Logan can probably comment on this. We were talking about how it's likened to casually expendable human lives, you know, that's come in this COVID era. And then it again goes back to that like political ideal with the Boris Johnson advisor who broke the government lockdown. So I just like how every song, you know, it's connected back to a message. You know, you think that these lyrics are fun and like they're catchy, but everything has that meaning. And I like that. I think it just really shows how smart these guys are.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. No, what a great, complex, thought out, balanced album. I mean, you could stream it now on Spotify. You can order it, whatever you want to do. That has been our discussion of Spare Ribs. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to say? Wonderful. Lo-fi beats outro coming at you. Thank you for listening to the Front of House podcast, guys. Check out our other features coming out this weekend. Appreciate the listen. Take care, everyone.
Bye.